He was not trying to meditate. That part mattered. He was sitting alone in a quiet room, late at night, doing nothing special. No music, no candle, no goal. Just sitting, because the day had been long and his mind felt full. His breath moved as it always had, in, out, quiet, automatic. Then, without planning it, he noticed it, not controlled it, not slowed it down, just noticed it. At first, it felt meaningless. People breathe all the time. What could be strange about that? But something subtle changed. The moment his attention rested on the breath, his thoughts softened. They did not disappear, but they stepped back, as if giving space to something else. The breath continued on its own, and yet, it felt different. He noticed a pause at the top of the inhale, a still moment before the exhale began. He had never felt that pause before. Even though it had always been there, time felt slightly stretched. Then a strange thought crossed his mind. Who is watching this? Breath. The breath was happening by itself. It was not making it move, but something was clearly aware of it. That awareness felt quiet, steady, almost separate from his thoughts. His chest relaxed. His shoulders dropped. His heartbeat slowed, not because he forced it, but because it seemed to respond to being seen. That was when the unsettling feeling arrived. It felt as if the breath was not just being observed, it felt as if it was observing him back. The idea made no sense. He almost laughed at himself, but the feeling stayed. He remembered something he had once heard about physics, a strange rule discovered by scientists. When particles are not observed, they behave one way. When they are observed, they behave another. They called it the observer effect. At the time, it sounded abstract, distant, something that belonged in laboratories and textbooks. But now, sitting in this quiet room, the idea felt uncomfortably close. His breath changed when he watched it. His body changed when he watched it. His mind changed when he watched it. No effort, no command, just attention. What if observation itself was doing the work? He tried to distract himself, but the question stayed. He noticed something else. When his attention drifted away, his breath became shallow again. His thoughts rushed back in. When he returned to watching the breath, calm returned. It was as if awareness acted like a switch, on, off, present, absent. That night, he did not sleep much. Over the next few days, he kept returning to the same simple act, watching one breath at a time. No counting, no technique, and something followed him into daily life. He reacted less, he paused more. Moments that once felt heavy now felt lighter. Even the world around him seemed to respond differently. Conversations slowed, tension dissolved faster. Problems did not vanish, but they lost their grip. He told no one. He barely understood it himself, but one question kept growing louder inside him. If watching something can change it, what happens when you watch the one thing that connects body and mind? The breath. It sat at the edge between control and surrender. Always there, always moving. And now, somehow, watching him as much as he watched it. Late one evening, the thought arrived that changed everything. What if the breath is not just air moving through the body? What if it is the doorway where awareness meets reality? The idea scared him, because if that were true, then reality was not only shaped by action, it was shaped by attention. And if attention could be trained, then something far deeper than calm was possible. He took another breath and watched, not knowing yet that this simple act would lead him to question who he really was and how much of reality had been listening all along. He did not tell anyone what was happening, not because it felt secret, but because words seemed too small for it. How do you explain something that feels real, yet has no shape? Instead, he began to read, late at night, early in the morning, whenever the world was quiet enough. He searched for answers in places that felt far from breathing science books, lectures, old experiments. That was when he found it again, the observer effect on quantum physics. Particles behave like waves when no one looks. They exist as possibilities, spread out, undefined. But the moment they are observed, they change. They choose a position. They become something specific. This was not philosophy. It was measured, repeated, real. The act of observation changed the outcome. He paused on that idea. Not action, not force. Observation. Something about that word felt different now. He closed his eyes and returned to the breath, in, out. He noticed how the body responded instantly. Muscles softened. The face relaxed. The mind slowed, as if it had been waiting for permission to stop racing. No control, just watching. A thought appeared. What if the body is the experiment? The breath, he realized, was always happening before thought, before choice, before effort. It was the most honest process he had. And yet, the moment awareness touched it, the whole system shifted. It felt similar to what the scientists described, a system of possibilities becoming a single experience when observed. Could the mind work the same way? When he did not watch his thoughts, they ran freely. Worry became stories. Fear became identity. The mind jumped from one idea to the next without rest. But when he watched his breath, something else happened. Thoughts still appeared, but they did not take over. They passed like clouds, seen, but not followed. Awareness did not fight them. It simply noticed, and in that noticing, their power faded. He began to see something unsettling. Most of his life was lived unconsciously. Reactions on repeat, emotions triggered without pause, words spoken before thought arrived. But observation created space, and space created choice. This was not about positive thinking. It was not about controlling reality with the mind. It was about something more subtle, the state of the observer. When he was tense, the world felt sharp. When he was calm, the world softened. When he was distracted, life rushed past him. When he was present, moments slowed down. Reality did not change all at once, but the way it met him did. He started to wonder how often he had mistaken reaction for truth. How many problems were made worse because no one was watching them clearly. The breath became his anchor, a place where awareness could rest without effort. He noticed that the breath did not ask for belief. It did not demand faith. It only asked to be noticed. That made it different from every other idea he had ever tried. One night, a deeper thought surfaced. If observation changes particles, an observation changes the breath, an observation changes the mind, then perhaps awareness is not inside reality. Perhaps reality forms around awareness. The idea felt dangerous, too big, too simple. He did not claim it as truth, not yet, but he could no longer ignore what he was. The experiencing watching the breath was not calming him by accident. It was revealing something fundamental. The observer was not passive. The observer was participating. And for the first time, he sensed that by changing the way he observed without force, without effort, he was already changing the way reality unfolded around him. He took another breath, and instead of asking what it was doing to him, he asked something new. What happens when awareness stops interfering and simply sees? The answer, he felt, was waiting. At first, he did not notice when it happened. There was no clear moment, no dramatic shift, just a quiet change, like a sound slowly fading in the background. He realized one morning that he was no longer trying to do anything with the breath. Before, there had been effort hiding inside the watching, a small wish for calm, a hope that something would happen now. Even that had dropped away. The breath moved. Awareness watched. Nothing else was needed. And that was when the mind began to loosen its grip. Thoughts still came, but they arrived softer, slayer. They no longer pulled him away so easily. When a worry appeared, it did not grow into a story. When a memory surfaced, it did not demand attention. They were seen and then they passed. He noticed something important. The mind created tension when it tried to control. The body relaxed when control stopped. Watching the breath without interference felt like stepping out of the way of a process that already knew what to do. The breath had never needed instructions. Neither, he realized, did awareness. There were moments when the sense of him faded slightly, not in a frightening way, more like the edge of a dream when you forget yourself for a second. Breathing happened. Sounds came and went. Sensations rose and fell. But the voice that usually commented on everything grew quiet. In that silence, something unexpected appeared. Clarity. He could feel emotions without being trapped inside them. Sadness did not become a story. Anger did not turn into action. Joy did not need to be chased. They were experienced fully and then released. It felt honest, clean. He saw how much effort he had spent trying to manage life from the mind, planning, defending, replaying conversations, imagining futures that never arrived, and how little of that effort had actually helped. When the mind stepped back, life felt simpler, not easier, but clearer. He began to notice the space between breaths, the small gap after the exhale, a moment with no air moving in or out. At first it frightened him. The mind wanted to jump in and do something, but the body remained calm. The next inhale always arrived on its own. That gap became a teacher. It showed him that stillness was not dangerous, that nothing did not mean absence, that life continued, even when he did nothing. In those moments, awareness felt wider than the body, not limited to thoughts or feelings, just present. He wondered how often the mind had mistaken movement for life. The more he watched, the more he understood something subtle. Interference was the problem, not emotions, not thoughts, not the breath. Interference, the constant attempt to adjust, improve, control, or escape what was already happening. When interference stopped, harmony appeared. This was not something he could force. The moment he tried, it vanished. It only arrived when he allowed things to be exactly as they were. That realization followed him everywhere. In conversations, he listened more and spoke less. In conflict, he paused before reacting. In uncertainty, he noticed fear without feeding it. Life did not slow down. He did, and in slowing down, he saw more. One evening, while watching the breath again, a quiet understanding surfaced. The mind was never meant to run the show. It was meant to serve. Awareness, not replace it. When awareness led, the mind relaxed. And when the mind relaxed, Cliff's dad was his hero. But without reading, Cliff couldn't become the person he wanted to become, the person he wanted to be. A quiet understanding surfaced as reality felt less like a problem to solve and more like something unfolding naturally. He did not feel powerful. He felt aligned. And for the first time, he sensed that by stepping out of the way, by stopping interference, he was finally allowing something deeper to move through him, something that had been waiting. All along he did not try to change his life. That was the strange part. There were no new goals, no affirmations, no plans to become someone better. He simply kept watching the breath, and when he forgot, he returned to it again. Yet life began to meet him in a different way. Small things stood out first. A pause before reacting, a softer tone in his voice, an ability to listen without preparing an answer. People noticed, even if they did not know why. Conversations felt less tense. Disagreements ended sooner. Silence no longer felt uncomfortable. It was not that others had changed, it was that he had stopped pushing against them. He saw how often he had been meeting the world with resistance-tied expectations, hidden fear, a need to control outcomes. That resistance had shaped every interaction now. With awareness resting more often in the breath, that resistance loosened, and something unexpected followed. Situations resolved themselves without effort. Problems that once felt heavy now felt manageable. When challenges appeared, they did not feel personal. They were events, not threats. He noticed that, when his inner state was calm, the world did not feel easier, but it felt clearer. Decisions arose naturally. Words came without strain. Timing felt precise. It was as if reality responded to his state, not his intentions. This made him uneasy. He did not want to believe in something magical or unrealistic. He wanted reason, structure, logic. So he watched carefully. When he was rushed, the day felt chaotic. When he was present, the day felt spacious. When his mind raced, mistakes followed. When awareness led, actions felt exact, nothing supernatural, just alignment. He remembered something from philosophy, that we never meet the world as it is, only as we are. That idea made sense now. Reality was not changing itself. The observer was changing, and the observer shaped the experience. He saw how attention colored everything. Fear made neutral events feel dangerous. Calm made the same events feel manageable. The breath had become a quiet mirror, reflecting his inner state back. To him, he noticed another shift. He trusted moments more. Instead of forcing answers, he waited. Instead of filling silence, he allowed it. Instead of reacting to discomfort, he stayed with it. And often, clarity appeared on its own. This felt different from control. Control was tight. This was open. Control exhausted him. This gave energy. One afternoon, while standing in line, he noticed his breath without thinking about it. The body softened. The mind slowed. Nothing special happened. And yet, everything felt different. He realized something important then. Reality did not need to be engineered through effort. It responded naturally to the state of the one experiencing. It changed the observer. An experience changes, not because the world bends to desire, but because perception becomes clear, that clarity affected action, action affected outcome, outcome reinforced clarity, a quiet loop. He had spent years trying to fix his life from the outside. Now, without trying, life felt more balanced, not perfect, not controlled, but responsive. That night, as he watched his breath again, a deeper question surfaced. If reality responds to the observer, then who is the observer really? He sensed that this question would lead him beyond habits, beyond personality, beyond the story he told himself every day. And for the first time, he felt ready to follow it. The question did not come loudly. It arrived, quietly, between breaths. Who is the observer? At first, he assumed the answer was obvious. I am. The person with a name, a past, a body, a story. But the more he watched, the less solid that answer felt. When he observed the breath, he could also observe his thoughts. When he observed his thoughts, he could also observe his emotions. When he observed his emotions, he noticed they changed. If all of these things could be seen, then none of them could be the observer itself. That realization unsettled him. He had spent most of his life believing he was his thoughts, his fears, his memories, his plans. But now those things appeared more like movements, events, happening in awareness. They came and went. Awareness stayed. He began to notice that awareness did not react. He did not judge. He did not rush. It simply knew what was happening, even when the mind was loud. Awareness remained quiet. Even when emotions surged, awareness did not move. This was not something he tried to believe. It was something he noticed directly. Philosophy, once abstract, now felt personal. He remembered old questions humans had asked for thousands of years. Am I the body? Am I the mind? Or am I the one aware of both? Watching the breath made these questions unavoidable. The breath rose and fell without asking permission. The body aged without consulting him. Thoughts appeared without warning. Yet awareness was present through all of it, unchanging. He noticed something else. Awareness did not feel like effort. It was not something he created. It was already there, before he paid attention to it. The breath simply pointed him back to it. That changed how he saw everything. If awareness was constant, then identity was flexible. If identity was flexible, then many of his fears were built on something unstable. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of not being enough. They all depended on a fixed idea of me. But that me kept changing. Awareness did not. This did not make him detached from life. It made him more present, more human. He felt emotions fully, but they no longer defined him. He experienced pain, but it did not collapse his sense of self. There was space around everything now. The breath became a doorway to that space, a reminder that life could be experienced without being possessed by it. He realized something important when he watched the breath. He was not escaping the world. He was stepping into it more honestly, without filters, without constant interpretation. Reality felt raw, immediate, alive, and with that came responsibility. If awareness shaped experience, then how he showed up mattered. Not morally, but fundamentally. Presence was not passive, it was creative. Every moment of attention shaped the quality of the moment that followed. He saw now why effort had failed him before. Effort came from the mind trying to fix life. Awareness came from something deeper, something already whole. Late one night, watching his breath in the dark, a final understanding settled in. He was not trying to become a better observer. He was remembering what had been observing all along, and that remembering felt like coming home.